So, good afternoon. Welcome you to the 2023 legislative meeting with our delegation, Southern Maryland delegation. We're very happy that we have 3 gentlemen with us right now. I understand there may be a couple more on the way. So, and I do want to apologize right out of the gate. Every year during an election cycle, it's a little complicated for us to get our legislative agenda in line, and session's already started, so we're a little behind the 8 ball, but it's just a function of election year cycle, and I promise you, gentlemen, next year we'll be much earlier with our presentation. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everybody would rise, please. Pledge of Allegiance. So why don't we open and you 3 can introduce yourselves, because we have 2 new members, so everybody gets to know who you are.
You can start as a
Delegate Long?
Good afternoon. I am Delegate Jeffrey Long for District 27B, which encompasses northern Calvert County, so North Beach, Chesapeake Beach, Dunkirk, Owings, and portions of Sunderland, Maryland. Newly elected to this role, extensive experience working in the General Assembly, and so I'm here to work in partnership with this delegation to serve the needs of our community. So I'm glad to be here with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Todd Morgan. I'm 29C, AKA Vera's south of the bridge. I know most of you since I spent 12 years on the other side of the bridge as a commissioner, and now I get to be your delegate, and happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Jackson, I didn't mean to slight you, but, once everybody knows you're here, they're not going to pay any attention to those 2, so I had to start with them.
No, we should. Afternoon, everybody. Honored to be here. It's my 9th session with you, so I've enjoyed a very good relationship with this Board of County Commissioners, and I have no reason to believe that we won't continue doing the great works that we have done in the past, so I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we greatly appreciate the fact that you're on the Budget and Tax Committee, along with Senator Bailey. So
We're getting there.
it's always good when we have some Southern Maryland members on Budget and
Absolutely.
Tax.
Absolutely.
But we really appreciate that. And for our 2 new members, we do have a presentation today of county seals. So if you want to come up and we get a picture and you can hang these in your office. Put the short people in the middle there. Yeah, 4 foot tall.
I'm the top of the pyramid, everything.
Oh, you might want to turn this one just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Perfect. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
So, Counselor, if you want to kick this off, please.
Thank you, sir. John Norris, County Attorney for Calvert. Just a little bit of background here.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah,
Agenda.
that's why we have a vice president. So at
Finally found something for me to do.
this time, we do need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve and adopt the agenda as submitted.
I have a motion and a second that we approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, Counselor.
Thank you, sir. Calvert County is the commissioner form of government, which is the oldest and most basic form of local government in the state of Maryland. All of the legislative and executive powers of the county commissioners come from the state of Maryland, so we have to ask for authority from the state to do most things. This year, we have 7 items that were requested for the county commissioners to consider. The first, the purpose of this meeting is to present those to the delegation and the senators representing the county. The first request relates to LoSAP amendments. Those are benefits that are paid to the volunteers who provide services throughout the county in public safety. The first change to LoSAP is a burial benefit to a death benefit and increasing that amount from $6,000 to $10,000. The second is to increase the LoSAP line of duty death benefit from $6,000 to $10,000. And the third is to authorize the Board of County Commissioners to approve an increase in the payment of the amount received by qualified volunteers that corresponds to the percentage of the cost of living adjustment the Board of County Commissioners might grant county employees. So these are all amendments to the public local laws of Calvert County, Title 14.
In this question, change the LoSAP burial benefit to a death benefit from 6 to 10, and increase the LoSAP line of duty benefit from 6 to 10. So are we saying that, are there two different categories here? What am I missing, John?
Yes, sir, those are two different categories. One is a line of duty and and the other is just a death
So
of
if
natural
an
causes.
individual retires from the service of the volunteers after X number of years and passes, he still is entitled to a death benefit.
They are entitled to a burial benefit today, though that may be covered by other sources. So they're converting from a burial benefit to a death benefit.
Okay.
And increasing the amount from 6,000 to
Okay.
10,000.
Thank you.
So where they found it may have not been paid out in the past, they are asking for it to be paid out to the family as a death benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor, do I have to leave?
No, sir, this has already been acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners and was supported 401 with you recusing yourself.
Thank you. And we've been joined by Senator Jack Bailey. Senator, welcome.
Happy to be here. Thank you all very much. One question about how does this, the adjustment that we're doing to make this a death benefit, how does this rate when we look at other counties with LoSAP?
I'm going to ask Mr. Richardson if he has an answer to that question from Department of Public Safety.
Jim Richardson, Division Chief for Fire Rescue EMS. It's a mix throughout the state. Some counties, jurisdictions do not have any benefit, and others are, I'd probably say 50-50 between a death and a burial benefit. The complication comes with the burial benefit is sometimes the families have already coordinated burial expenses, and we get into an issue where it's a reimbursement and paying for invoices, et cetera. Whereas we found it's probably much simpler, and fortunately, we've only had like one line of duty death in the last 30 years. But with a regular, and it is a qualified volunteer who's served their 25 years of service that would to pass, being able to provide a death benefit, a flat death benefit to their beneficiary would be what we're looking for.
And what I'm asking is the $10,000 death benefit, how does that compare to what's offered in other jurisdictions?
There's not necessarily an overall comparison. The Maryland State Firemen's Association does have a program that has a summary of the benefits, and we can provide that. That will give from their perspective where they've summarized the benefits. And again, some jurisdictions do and some don't. But
I'd be very interested in looking at that, and the whole reason is if everyone else, it averages is 12,000, right? Why are we only going to give 10?
okay,
Right.
I will get that and provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good stat, though. Trust me.
Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding the first request? If not, we'll move on. And I see Delegate Fisher may have joined us by Teams.
Hello, Delegate Fisher.
Okay, we'll pause when he's available online, see if he has any comments he'd like to make. Request number 2 is from the Department of Public Safety Animal Control Division. They're requesting to be made the current rabies, or to amend the current rabies reporting requirements. Aside from Frederick County Animal Control, the Maryland Annotated Code provides that a person will immediately report a rabies exposure to the local police or sheriff's office, and then the sheriff or sheriff's office in our county would work collaboratively with the health department to enforce all orders of the health officer. Despite that, most of the reports for rabies exposure does come into our animal control division and not through the sheriff's office. So they're asking to model the language of Frederick County that would allow the public to report a rabies exposure to the animal control division, who would then coordinate with the sheriff's office and the health department to make sure the public safety is maintained. And Crystal Dowd is here from the animal control division. If there are any questions. Okay. We'll move on to the third request. It was brought to our attention by Delegate Fisher last session that there is money left on the table that the county could qualify for an additional 2% of the state admissions and amusement tax from electronic bingo. This request is to renew last session's, what would have been an amendment at that time, so that the county would, instead of getting the 4% it receives today through the Calvert Youth and Opportunities Fund, it would bring it up to 6%, so the total amusement tax collected in electronic bingo in Calvert County for the beaches and the county totals 35%, which is equal to what is collected in Anne Arundel County.
So Delegate Long, you worked for Senator Miller. You may recall this was an initiative of Senator Miller to help fund Ward Park in Dunkirk.
That's what I was thinking about at that moment you said it. Yeah.
And we did have this in last year, got tangled up at the end, didn't quite make it through. We thought we had agreement, but as you know, things jumbled sometimes. So we've reintroduced the bill. Make sure we work with you all gentlemen to see that it gets through this year.
And, Mr. President, if I
Yes.
might, just so the Board of County Commissioners and my colleagues know that we've been talking for a number of years of trying to find another opportunity for an additional Boys and Girls Club in the county. I think there was a conversation with Calvert Elementary a couple weeks ago or something. We'll certainly keep you abreast of that. So any modifications that need to happen, we'll certainly deal with that. But I thought this was a good opportunity for us last year. The end of last year's session got kind of garbled all across the board, but we think that this makes sense as we continue to move forward to make sure that these needs are met. So.
The next one was also supported last year, and we thank the delegation senators for supporting the county's request for authority to create a local preference. It's not setting forth the terms of what that local preference would be, but it's enabling legislation to allow the conversation to happen locally, both in how to preserve taxpayer dollars and also to compensate or to recognize that there are contributions that local business makes to the county that's not necessarily made by out-of-county businesses, but truly also balancing their concerns regarding reciprocal preference. If they were to go to bid in another county, they could be penalized if we have a local preference. Because of how convoluted and how thick that web is, this is only enabling legislation to allow the conversation locally and then be able to do what is best for the businesses.
As you point out, this is for conversation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
So it would have to be authorized by the assembly, and then the gentleman or lady would have to decide if this is something they want to be able to do at a certain point in time, particularly, I went through this before for quite a few years, and I know
Yes.
it can get very complicated.
Yes.
Thank you.
And our plan was to work with our business community to determine what that number is, because as was mentioned, it can be reciprocal when you reach outside county borders, and so that's the goal here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The fifth request comes from my office to allow the state's attorney to appoint a county attorney to enforce civil citations. So using tobacco as an example, the violation of the state code for tobacco sales licenses is enforced by the state's attorney, but the collection is a civil process. And the state's attorney has agreed that though it is already allowed in code and charter counties, commissioner counties have been left out, and he supports being able to appoint a county attorney to enforce the judgments that they obtain and enforce the civil citations, because it's not something the state's attorney is necessarily charged with doing. And here to answer any questions. Okay. As I mentioned, that's already allowed for charter and code counties, but not commissioner counties. So part of being the oldest form of government in the state of Maryland. Sixth request is a request to authorizing the Vice President of the Board of County Commissioners to act on behalf of the President either by written delegation of authority from the President, for instance, maybe going on a trip overseas, out of the county, but I mean, they're the exact same thing. If you leave the county, you might as well go overseas. Or the removal, death, resignation, or disability of the President.
Just so you know, I have challenged the end of that, that last sentence of, if there's some ulterior plan going on that I don't know about and they're just being prepared.
I think John put that one in, not me.
So we've seen this commonly with bond counsel. They have some concerns about the Vice President signing off on bond documents when the President is not available, and having it in legislation would resolve that for them.
I may offer an amendment, that it depends on who the vice president is.
And the seventh request was added on Tuesday, actually. It is authorizing the county to regulate the solicitation of money within public right-of-ways by adding Calvert to the existing laws in the transportation article that are already applicable in Allegheny and Cecil counties. So in Title 21 of the transportation article, there is one provision that pertains to solicitation of money in public right-of-ways for most every county in the state except for Calvert and St. Mary's. This provision for Allegheny and Cecil allows the county to have a permit process whereby nonprofit organizations could seek a permit that could be up to 5 days per calendar year, where you can still have the volunteers out on the street with their Fill the Boot campaign, for instance, where the fire departments may go out and try and raise money at the intersection. But it adds Calvert to what already exists in Allegheny and Cecil.
So, John, let me get this. So you're asking for a nonprofit organization, we'll call it the fire department for the sake of discussion, to be able to solicit intersections by passengers going by. Got that part. They cannot do that now.
No, everybody can do that now. We're creating a prohibition against solicitation of money on public right-of-ways by
So-
this legislation.
So my question would be, so we would say, and we have this problem in St. Mary's, so I'm just bringing this up. So we have homeless stand at the corner and walk up and down looking for money. Would that prohibit that from happening?
It would unless they were representing a nonprofit and had a permit.
Okay, do you run into a First Amendment argument on that?
Correct.
I'm saying,
Potentially.
I mean, you could, for the homeless who would be, soliciting money at the organization, by law, I believe that's a First Amendment privilege. I could be wrong, you're the lawyer, not me.
Right.
So,
There are potential pitfalls. Maryland's legislation has not been challenged in the context of the First Amendment, but I'm not sure how it would fall out were it to be challenged.
okay. Thank you.
And that's the goal, Delegate Morgan, is trying to control the homeless population panhandling in the intersections.
We have that same problem, so I'm well aware of. Thank
If
you.
our goal is if this does pass and we adopt a permit process, we're not going to charge for those permits. We don't want to in any way deny nonprofits from
Oh,
the opportunity to raise funds.
okay.
If I could add something, Mr. President. Just this past Sunday, I encountered a family in this situation, two small kids out on the corner. The kids were in the intersection. So it's safety, safety, safety.
Have you, what we've tried to do is get State Highway to help intervene. And I can look you now until it's fallen on some deaf ears so far, but I'm going to keep persisting because we have a couple bad intersections over in St. Mary's where it's just too persistent.
And as Counselor said, you know, there is some precedent in Cecil and Allegheny counties.
Yes.
So if there is a challenge, they're going to challenge all of us if this were to pass. So-
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, what is
Yes,
the
sir.
permitting process? Who
So,
coordinates that?
so we, well, depends, depends on,
We'd have to set up that
Yeah.
whole criteria. We'd have
Yeah.
to stand that up after the legislation passed.
because that, you know, it depends on how the permits relate, like Parks and Rec does some permitting, you know, different departments do permitting, depending on what their connection is. I don't think we've thought that far ahead.
Just be good to know what that would be.
So we do have a process now for special events, and we would probably mirror that where it goes through the sheriff's office, the state police, state highway, county department of public works. They may not be charged the special permit fee, but at least it would alert those who are familiar with traffic patterns and what else is going on in the county to be able to advise whether or not that's a good weekend or a bad weekend or.
So, if I might,
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, so as you're preparing for the hearings for, well, we're going to meet obviously and talk about these, but as you're preparing for the hearings, any insight on how that permitting process will work?
Okay,
You're certainly going to get that question in Annapolis, but if you could begin to work on that.
we'll do that. I think our main goal was just to make sure everybody understood we weren't going to charge,
Gotcha.
you know, we weren't going to charge a nonprofit a fee to do this. This is just a matter of control. And we'll bear whatever cost it is to issue those permits.
Okay.
But we will we'll lay out a process for you when that time comes.
Mr. President, I
Yes,
would
sir.
add just one last thing too, and if you could just lay out exactly how in that permitting process you would make residents aware of that, how to access that as well too, would be probably a good way. I think most people wouldn't know to think in that,
Right.
that school of thought. So,
And it's always an educational process anytime you do something new.
yeah.
We don't have many intersection drives anymore like we used to, but, you know, if the situation arises, we just address that as, and nobody's going to get put in jail or fined or locked up. We just work through that process to make sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Unless there are any other final comments, I did have 7 bills that have been submitted by our senators that represent Calvert County. Some of them have hearing dates as soon as the 19th of January, and I'm sure the senators would like letters of support if that's appropriate. And if you'd like to speak to your bill, Senate Bill 134 is a property tax credit submitted by Senator Jackson for disabled veterans. The tax credit would be equal to their disability. So I did see that one is submitted. Senator Bailey asked for Senate Bill 102, Natural Resources Recreational Crabbing License, an exemption for children that are 16 years or younger to be for the crabbing license. Senator Jackson asked for Fishing Creek Bridge to be designated by the State Highway Administration as the Fallen Heroes Fishing Creek Bridge. And Senator Bailey has Senate Bill 80, which is the blue and flathead catfish, finfish trout line license, authorizing those licenses for trout lines for those species. Senator Bailey, I believe, had Senate Bill 69, law enforcement agencies, positive community feedback, that when there is positive community feedback, it would be kept in the law enforcement officer's record, but it would not be considered a personnel file, which means that it would be subject to disclosure under the Public Information Act, so increasing the transparency of the pluses and the minuses in any law enforcement officer's file. And Senate Bill 76, an income subtraction for public safety volunteers, increasing that to $10,000. And Senator Bailey's Senate Bill 61, property tax credit for public safety officer, that allows the local jurisdiction to define what a public safety officer is and removes the cap of $2,500 that is there today. So I don't know if you want to speak to any of your bills, or?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
if I might, John, you have not received a request that I'm hoping you will receive, but when the local delegation meets, I'm going to ask the team to support an effort, or at least to have the conversation with you all regarding a P3 process for the building and refurbishing of your schools. A few years back, we did that in Prince George's County. And I can tell you what it does, it's an enabling legislation. You and your school board decide whether you want to engage in a public-private partnership. What it does essentially, which is most important, is that it alleviates you and the school board from having to wrestle with the facilities maintenance for sometimes up to 20 years on that piece of property. In Prince George's, in a little over 2 years, maybe almost 3 years now, they have been able to, by the end of this fiscal year, I believe, they will have built 10 schools that were sorely in need of being rebuilt and some others refurbished. It does not kick Calvert County out of the queue that they're already in, that's established through the state on refurbishing and rebuilding of your schools. Just another option. If you choose to do that, it will allow you to at least have the ability to engage if you choose. It's enabling legislation. It has to come through Annapolis. 3 jurisdictions currently have it. Prince George's was the first last year, Charles and Baltimore City. Senator Bailey and I have had some brief discussions, and delegations will talk about it, and possibly St. Mary's, but it's something we'll send you more information on that. I just think it's an opportunity that even if you never engage in it, it's on your books. If you want to engage in it, you have to have it on your books. It's that simple. But, and so you'll see further on that. We'll make sure you get information on that. So as far as the other bills go, some of those bills got caught up in, the last minute session last year. So these bills you talk about are bills that we submitted before. We would certainly like your support on any of that as it engages Calvert County. And we look forward to working with you all going forward, closely working together, so.
So you have closing comments? Senator Bailey, you were a little tardy, and we allowed everybody to introduce themselves. But you can introduce yourself, and if you have any closing comments, legislation, anything you want to talk about, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Welcome to the board. First time getting the opportunity to address you all and to be here. And I am sorry that I was a few minutes delayed. I was in the parking lot, was working with some legislation, talking on the phone. So the situation is this. When you come to visit us this year, we have moved offices. So we've got a new office. We're just down the street, but it's 401. And we've also moved committees. So we are on budget and tax, no longer on JPR. So Calvert County has I think the distinct honor of having 2 senators, and both of us sit on budget and tax. So that's a benefit for you all. Look forward to working with you. You can always keep up with us. We ask you to please reach out and keep engaged with us. And one of the things that it comes out every Friday is the Bailey Daily, and we try to keep you up to date on what's happening in Annapolis.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Jackson?
Thank you all again for this opportunity to sit down with you. District 27, will be having, for the first time that I can remember, a district night. We couldn't get that done over the last for a while. So we will have that. That'll be March 6th, and we will be in touch on transportation and logistics and the like. I am again on budget and taxation, but also on public safety, transportation and environment, which touches us all. And heading the pension committee, Senator Bailey will be on that committee with me as well. But again, if if you look at across the board of your delegation, we are strategically placed throughout both chambers to address the needs that we have. So looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Delegate Morgan?
Thank you. Was Delegate Fisher on?
But he's not saying anything. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, then I will, on behalf of myself,
Delegate Fisher?
Hey, this is Delegate Fisher's Chief of Staff, Chris. He's been delayed on his way in, but he's on his way.
Okay. Thank you. Just let us know when he's there.
okay.
Will do.
I'm honored to be here. Jeff and I are both on Environment and Transportation this year. I think we have 8 new members on that committee, so it'll be interesting to learn. You know, the environment is really important to all of us, and I'm looking forward to serving up there and working with you guys.
Thank you. Delegate Long?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor to be here for my first legislative request meeting. I look forward to working with this delegation, and we have offices now, committee assignments, of course, and phone numbers, and so I look forward to updating you all weekly through our mailing email update list as well, too, what's happening in Annapolis to benefit our community. So I'm, again, looking forward to working with our colleagues and bringing forth good results. Thank you.
Thank you. So we want to take this opportunity again to congratulate you on your election success, and no pressure, but having 2 senators on the Budget and Tax Committee is, for those of you out there watching, if you don't know, that is huge. And then on Transportation Subcommittee, so we're going to look to have all our roads problems fixed and no issues with our budget. And so,
Got a new bridge.
no pressure.
I wasn't even gonna go there. I can't believe you went there. Don't even touch that.
I didn't mention that.
No.
I didn't
Well,
mention
I
that.
can, because I listened to it from both sides now.
Yeah.
But I know Mark isn't on yet, but he's on Economic Matters again. So that's always a good position to be on. And it also will have a very strong Southern Maryland delegation with C.T. Wilson as the chair, Delegate Crosby as the vice chair, and Delegate Fisher there too.
Very good. So we're here for you. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. And before I close, I do want to say one thing. Today, we got an email from a constituent, some suggestions on proposed legislation that he felt like we should introduce. And I had a discussion with the attorney, and we do not currently have a process to allow citizen input to our process. But what I'm going to say today is that we're going to work on that. And for next year, we're going to have a process whereby citizens can come forward and talk about things they'd like to see proposed. So it's a little too late for this year, and I apologize, but we will work on that and have that in place for next year. I want to make sure that
Absolutely. And
Great.
come up and see us anytime.
I will.
We're actually open for business this year. You know, it's been a couple years for that. Come up and see us anytime.
I'm sure I can come to Budget Tax and ask for money.
But the request date is set for the 20th. right?
February,
No,
January.
is the request date when we have to have our bills in. So if you have a gentleman or whoever the constituent was, right, they can reach out to us individually. And if it is legislation that, you know, we can look at it, right? Don't just tell them, well, you gotta wait until next year. If it's something that really is beneficial to everyone. We are still looking at legislation daily, and we will be doing that until the 20th.
I'll make sure we forward you that email. Okay.
I'm in
Yes,
office
sir?
225, if you all care to know.
You've got an office now.
Yes.
We met last week, and the House was a little slow assigning offices, and
We
the
got 'em
poor
Friday.
gentleman didn't have an office yet, but thank God.
Did you get a
we
phone
do.
And our phones just got delivered today. Our chief of staff called me, so we're good to go.